How's it going, everyone? Got quite a few PlayStation updates to go over in this video. Horizon seems like it's going to be a franchise that is here for the long term, even though there were indications that Aloy's story might be a trilogy. It looks like the franchise itself has a lot of legs to it, and we'll talk all about that. Final Fantasy XVI, one of June's biggest game releases, along with Street Fighter VI and Diablo 4. DLC is being considered for the title. We'll talk that at the end of this video. But first of all, the Horizon franchise will be sticking around for quite a while, as Guerrilla Games' studio director John Bart Van Bean noted during a keynote that Guerrilla has around 16 plans clicking on for Horizon, which includes future entries in the franchise. We're going to be continuing it for a very long while. Now, this doesn't entirely mean that there's 16 games in development. 16 plans could be things like, spin-off comic books. You have stuff like the Netflix series, etc., etc. There's a lot of entertainment mediums that Horizon will be entering, but I fully expect Sony to try to make Horizon, if it's not already, among one of their pillar franchises, and it's kind of there. While I wouldn't put Horizon at the level of a God of War, I think from a Sony standpoint, they want Aloy to be one of their mascots for the foreseeable future and one of the pillars of PlayStation as a whole. You can think what you want about Horizon. I enjoyed Forbidden West a lot. In fact, and this ruffled some feathers last year when I said this, I said that personally, playing through Horizon Forbidden West and God of War Ragnarok, at the time that I played those respective games, I ended up enjoying Horizon Forbidden West more. I did not say I thought it was a better game, just for whatever reason, while I played that game, during that time period, I think I was just looking for a big open world game at that point, even though I was also playing Dying Light 2 around that time. I digress. I really did enjoy Horizon Forbidden West, but at the same time, I've been incredibly critical about that game, where I think the narrative just fell off the rails in the second half of that game. And you know what? Like, they're gonna do another Horizon title. I get it that I need to see the story completely play out before I make a decision on that, and it was noted that Horizon was set to be a trilogy of these big open world titles. I think Aloy's story, but it could just be a trilogy arc, and then they could easily continue it. Look at what happened with God of War. It was a trilogy. They continued it with God of War 2018. Now, I don't think at this point Horizon needs that stark shift in gameplay. I think that is very fresh, and I think that is something that people are always going to be into. Big open world RPG, a lot of content. The setting of Horizon is great, and I don't think you've gotten anywhere close to the amount of mileage that the franchise could potentially have, because there's so many other parts of planet Earth that you could explore within this Horizon style setting, and I think that could be incredibly compelling. Remember that outside of the mainline games, we know that their third Horizon game is in development. Potentially, they already have ideas for DLC for that game, because we had Frozen Wilds and we had Burning Shore. That could take up two of those plans. Netflix series, comics, things like spin-off titles. There's that co-op multiplayer game in development. There's rumblings of an MMORPG. All of these things look to be elements that are going to expand Horizon greatly. Some of them are going to hit. The idea of a big MMORPG in the Horizon universe sounds incredibly compelling to me. Like, I think if all goes well and you do a high-quality MMO in the Horizon setting, like, I think that could be really, really great. But, I just don't have that much faith in MMOs, and I'm not a big MMO guy anyway. Like, I'll play Final Fantasy XIV, but it's not like I invest that much time. But the idea of a Horizon MMO, when I first heard about that, I'm like, okay, that could be interesting. The co-op action game, it'll be interesting to see when that drops as well, since you'd have to think that's relatively far along at this point, and maybe for a 2024 release. And then there was also the rumblings of the Horizon Zero Dawn remake, but yeah, we don't really need to talk about that. Nevertheless, the franchise itself will be kicking around for quite a while. Alright, moving on from that, Final Fantasy XVI producer Naoki Yoshida had noted that DLC is now something under consideration at Square Enix, as they did note that fan reception towards the game, this is now making them think. Yoshida noted, as you know, going into Final Fantasy XVI, the one thing we wanted to create was a full, complete story, something that you can enjoy from beginning to end 100% without any DLC, and I think we were able to do that. But now we understand we're getting feedback from players that have played the game, and a lot of players want to see something more, and we know that and understand that. For us, we're taking that and then thinking about our options moving forward, so hopefully in the future we can have something that we can give to you all. The idea of Final Fantasy 16 DLC, I think, can be something that does rather well. There are a lot of characters, and the world of Valisthea is pretty big, and I don't think they did everything in their power to explore different sections of it, and especially, you know, some of the different regions and character backstories. There's stuff you can do. I don't want to talk about specifics that I'd like to see out of a DLC because that would be spoiler city, but nevertheless, Final Fantasy 16 also as a whole, from start to finish, you do get an entire story there. The story of Clive. Is there more story to be told with Clive and some elements of his story? Sure, there are more stories. There's also other characters where you can do story expansions from them. I've seen various ideas, and I'm kind of in line with a lot of the ideas that I've read online. We'll see if it ultimately comes to fruition. I imagine that Square would have to greenlight something like Final Fantasy 16 DLC because you can get a lot of mileage out of it. First of all, you got Final Fantasy 16 out. Right now, it's doing fairly good numbers. We heard 3 million in a week. I'm gonna think that's a pretty good number. You can do DLC content, and then much like with Final Fantasy 15, you can do some sort of complete Ultimate Royal Edition, although with FF15, like, the base game and the DLC was like, it was completely whack how they did it. With FF16, the stuff you got in the main game already gives you a full experience. With FF15, that was a little bit questionable how they did the DLC, but nevertheless, you know, you can do additional content, then you can roll out a complete edition or something like that. Remember, with every Final Fantasy game, going back to Final Fantasy X, there has been extended content release. Every mainline Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy X, obviously, you had 10-2, then you had 10 and 10-2 HD Remaster. With Final Fantasy 12, a lot of people don't remember this, you had Final Fantasy 12 Revenant Wings on the Nintendo DS. That was a follow-up to Final Fantasy 12. Final Fantasy 13, obviously, you had 2 sequels with 13-2 and 13-3, and then Final Fantasy 15, you had all of the DLC, you had the Royal Edition upgrade, etc., etc. With Final Fantasy 16, I don't see it needing anything as extreme as like 13 with 2 sequels. I don't think we're gonna get that, but can you do pieces of DLC to flesh out some characters, flesh out some side stories? Absolutely, and I do think Square Enix will ultimately do that, and especially because, you know, if you're scheduling the DLC, you could probably release the PC version at some point. You can bundle in the DLC to make it a more attractive offer at $70 because you know they're going to be releasing a game a year after the original release. At least bundle in the DLC so, you know, we don't feel completely ripped off dropping $70 on the PC version as well. I think that makes a lot of sense. That's what they did with 7 Remake. Intermission came out and then they dropped the complete edition on PC. It was still $70. Final Fantasy 15 Royal Edition, I think was released at $50 on PC, but at least you had the bonus content, so, you know, spending a premium didn't sting as much as far as that's concerned. I imagine with Final Fantasy 16, you'll get your DLC coming out over the course of the next year, and then you'll get, let's say, an Ultimate Edition released in the fall of 2024, something to that effect. I'm just spitballing here, but that's what I would think. But that'll do it for me. Again, Horizon as a franchise looks like something that'll be continuing for the foreseeable future, and Final Fantasy 16 DLC might be something that is actually happening. Square Enix considers that to be an option, and given how well this game has been received, and again, that added element of you are going to do a PC release at some point, why not add some value with that, especially if you're going to keep it at a high price point? DLC makes a lot of sense to me, but that'll do it for me. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.